Assalamu alaikum students. Welcome again. I am your instructor Khalil Rao for the course on taxation management. How are you? I would like to listen from you. How did you find the last lecture? Any comments from you? Please, come on. Anyway, I can understand. First thing, you are prepared, you are motivated. That's good. And second, you have some apprehension. What are those apprehensions? Those can be two, which I can judge. One, lengthy syllabus. And second one, difficult course. Isn't so? Yes, that's good. Let me explain it to you. And I'm sure, hopefully, you will be satisfied when I tell you that it is neither lengthy nor difficult. It's very easy to say, but I will explain it to you. And I would want you are with me, meaning thereby you stand convinced. That is the way we will be moving forward. I will always try to convince you. So first, lengthy syllabus. As I can understand, it is very difficult to absorb so many things which were stated, which were narrated, which were explained very briefly, although in the first lecture that was there. It was a heavy agenda, but you will also appreciate. आपको पता होगा कि ये सारा कोर्स जो है, that we have to cover in 45 sessions. That what you have not covered, that is what we have to study in the days to come, in the entire semester. So, your questions stand answered. It is not at all a lengthy course. The syllabus has been designed in such a way that we shall move topic by topic, chapter by chapter, with problems, with exercises, with illustrations. Everything will be explained to you, and you will not have any problem whatsoever. That will be easily covered during the semester. So not a lengthy syllabus. And second question, that it is a difficult course. Yes, that is understandable. It will be difficult for you. Rather, I would like to use the word not difficult, rather it is different for you. It is different because you have not already studied these words, these phrases, these terminologies, these legal expressions. So that looks different and odd to you. But my dear students, you will appreciate that you are here to learn all these things. I am here to teach you all these things. So at the end of the semester, when you are taught, and when you demonstrate, when you solve different problems, when you go through the exercises, when you know how to apply these words and expressions, the applications of those rules and regulations in the different situations, it would all become very easy for you. So my dear students, I am confident both the questions which you had in your mind, those stand answered. Syllabus, not lengthy. And the course, not difficult at all. But one thing that I will go on repeating over and over again, and it is up to you to follow it. There are no shortcuts in life. There are no shortcuts for success. You need to be regular. You need to be punctual. you need to be hardworking. And I can assure you, success will follow you. What I have to do, I have to teach you in a very systematic and scientific way. And you will see, everything will become very easy, not only to comprehend, to understand, but your concepts will be so developed, and these will be so vivid, these will be so explicit, that there will be no ambiguity at all. And when it is done, when this concept building is completed, then what you have to do? In fact, you have to apply these concepts in the real life situations. You are the future business managers. You are the accountants. You will be holding different offices in diversified fields. So you have to apply your knowledge over there. So I'm training you in a way, I'm teaching you in a way that you are able to apply your knowledge to the practical situation. So my dear students, be regular, be punctual, and start hard work from the day one. The success, as I told you, that will be following. I will make you comfortable as much as I can, and I wish your journey that will lead to success in the days to come. So that's all about the last lecture. If you have further questions, if you have some suggestions, if you want me to tell you something else, then we can continue our deliberations, our discussions. Then I can repeat the areas where you have the difficulties. Then I can repeat the lecture, salient points, important points, and let your questions come to us, and we shall be responding to you. So that's all about the first lecture. Now I have to start the lecture number 2. That is an overview of taxation. We have to cover so many points. In overview, we shall cover so many points. Let me highlight the same. We shall be studying the general understanding of taxes, general definition of taxes, that is how the experts define the taxes. Then comes the statutory definition of tax. Statutory, I had told you, this is a word which we use very often, and I shall be using it. When statute comes, it means a legal document. Statutory means the legal definition. So students, as you can see on the slide, I shall be explaining you the difference between the taxes and the fees. Then I shall explain what fiscal policy is. It not be explained in very detail, only an overview of fiscal policy and nexus of fiscal policy with taxes, that will be explained to you. And we will discuss the different sources of revenue generation. Then comes the canons of taxation, and next, different type of taxes which are in vogue. After that, we shall move on to the taxation structure of Pakistan, and we must also move on to what taxation management is. We have not talked about taxation management at all. Not a single word has been said about the taxation management yet. So as I had told you, I am preparing you. You must know all this so that you can appreciate what taxation management is, what you are going to manage, what we have to manage. And then statutes, as I told you, these laws come from. What is the process of legislation? What is legislation all about? That will be explained. This is our agenda for the day, and now I take all these items one by one. First, the point on the agenda for the day is the general understanding of taxes. So what the taxes are, or what the taxes mean to a common man. By the way, how you can define the word tax? Or what the word tax, what meaning does the word tax convey to you? जब टैक्स का लफ्ज बोला जाता है तो इससे आपके ज़हन में क्या बात आती? I'm confident आपके जहन में यही बात होगी कि टैक्सेस एक बोझ है, एक बर्डन है, एक ऐसा बर्डन जो गवर्नमेंट हमारे पर लगा देती है, इससे इन्फ्लेशन हो जाती है, महंगाई हो जाती है, ये मुख्तलिफ लोगों को मुख्तलिफ अंदाज में अफेक्ट करती है। तो यहाँ तक तो बात सही। वी हैव टू गो टू द डिक्शनरी। डिक्शनरी में इसके क्या मीनिंग आपको मिलेंगे? व्हेन यू रिवर टू द डिक्शनरी, आई सॉ दीज मीनिंग्स एंड आई शेयर विद यू। टैक्स मीन्स a strain. So the literal meanings of the word tax are burden, strain. Literal means dictionary meaning. I present before you, and you can see on the slide as well, few sentences so that this word tax must leave some expression on your minds. The long journey would be a tax on my old father's strength. I repeat it. The long journey would be a tax on my father's strength. Now what type of burden or strain it is? This burden, as I told you, this burden can be on physical strength. This burden can be on the mental sensitivities. This burden can be on one's pocket, on the income, on the wealth. So here in this sentence, where the burden is lying, this burden is on the physical strength of the old man. Old man is not in a position to have this burden of long journey. For a young man, it may be a source of recreation, so it's a burden. Another sentence, I found they were taxing my patience by asking irrelevant questions. You can see this sentence on the slide. So what they are taxing, what burden is coming, where this burden is coming. I told you it may be the burden on physical strength, on mental strength or sensitivities which are used, or on one's pocket or the incomes or wealth. So here, by irrelevant questions, one is mentally disturbed. That is the burden on the mental sensitivities of the person. So these are different ways how this word tax is used in a general way by the common man, by the common person. Since from general explanation you have to move how the technocrats, how the professionals like you, they will explain the word tax, that's altogether a different ball game, and we are coming to it. Now here is a definition. It is not a statutory definition. It is again not a legal definition. This is how the economists, how the experts in public finance, they view the tax, how they define the tax. They define it. It is a general, compulsory levy or the contribution of wealth levied upon persons by the state to meet the expenses incurred in conferring common benefits on the residents. Are you disturbed? No, it's very easy one. I explain it, or the different exponents of this definition, those are being explained to you. So the students, you need not to worry at all. I explain you the different points mentioned in this definition. The first word which you see, that is the journal levy. This is the journal contribution. What is meant by journal over here? By journal is meant that the contribution or the levy or the imposition of tax, that is across board. इसका मतलब ये है कि डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं होनी चाहिए टैक्स लगाते हो. डिस्क्रिमिनेशन से ये भी मतलब ना समझें कि all the citizens are to be treated alike. There should not be the discrimination amongst equals. एक क्लास ऑफ पर्सन है, उनमें डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं होनी चाहिए. Say there is business class. All the persons belonging to that, they should be treated alike in a similar way. इसका मतलब ये है कि रूल्स, रेगुलेशन, लॉ जो उन पर अप्लाई होना है वो सब पर एक ही हो. मुख्तलिफ लोगों के लिए मुख्तलिफ लॉ नहीं बन सकते. सैलरीड क्लास है, उनके भी जर्नल लेवी होनी चाहिए. पर्सन टू पर्सन लॉज एंड रेगुलेशंस डिफर नहीं कर सकते. this word journal means without discrimination. Then next point to be explained is compulsory levy. What is meant by the compulsory levy? The tax is once imposed by the government, or I should use the word legislature. I will explain it to you later on. This is the technical way to explain it. Once the taxes are levied, it is necessary for the ones on whom it is levied to pay the tax. If they will not pay the tax, then law would come into play. Writ of the government is there, and that must be established. So it's a compulsory levy. Once imposed, the persons on whom it is imposed, they are bound to pay it. If they default, they don't pay it, then the law would come into play and will compel them to pay those taxes. So there is a machinery provided for that. There is a mechanism, there is a procedure how these taxes are to be recovered. Then, on whom levied? Levied upon persons. What is meant by the person? We shall see into detail how the word person is defined under tax laws. Very wide scope of the word tax. Here at this point in time, you just understand by person means an individual, a natural person as you and I are, or an artificial person. A company in the eyes of law is a person. That is an artificial person. The definition is quite wide. That is given in section 80 of the Income Tax Ordinance 2001, and we shall be studying that. What is meant by person under tax laws? Who can levy the tax? By the state. Tax is not the prerogative of everybody and anybody. It is the state. It is the legislature which can impose tax. And we shall see how the state exercises these powers. What is the process of legislation? And next, what is the purpose of taxation? These are few lines depicting everything. For conferring, for providing common benefits to whom? To the residents. It is the purpose that certain common benefits are required to be provided by the state to its residents. So the state needs money, state needs revenue. So that is collected through taxes. That is one of the means. There are other means of the collection of the revenue that we shall be studying later on. And one more word that needs explanation. What is meant by common benefits? By taxes or by paying taxes, the government is not compelled to provide you the counter benefits. If you are paying taxes, you cannot ask the government that provide counter benefits to me. I have paid 100,000 rupees during this tax year to you. What you have paid me in return for this 100,000, this is the concept of counter benefit. This is not in taxes. Rather, it is a concept of common benefits. What is meant by that? The government is to spend on the general welfare of the public. There may be the ones who are paying taxes. There may be the ones who are paying more taxes. There may be the ones who are paying less taxes. And there may be a class of people who are not paying tax at all. Why they are not paying? Because under law they are not supposed to pay tax, because they don't have the income on which tax should be paid. I am not talking about the defaulters, that they are not paying the tax. But the point which I want to explain to you, what common benefit? It is the entitlement of each and every citizen to make use of the benefits which are provided by the state. You say all the communication networks, these roads, dispensaries, schools, colleges, the benefits are available to each and every person, whether you are contributing are not contributing. This is the concept of common benefit. So that's all about the journal definition. This is the definition how the experts on public finance and the economists, they consider about tax. Then I told you we shall be taking up the statutory definition. Statutory definition, I am deferring at this point in time. We shall be taking it later on because it will be difficult for you to comprehend at this point in time. So it is enough for you that this is the definition how taxes are to be collected according to the law, or rather how the Income Tax Ordinance 2001 that provides the mechanism of collection of taxes or levying of taxes. The next point which we had to consider, that is what is the difference between the taxes and the fees. I just told you that what taxes are doing or what the revenue collected by government provides to the citizen. They don't provide the counter benefits. Those provide common benefits. Whereas in fees, there is a concept of counter benefit. And there is one more point. There is the option. As far as taxes are concerned, we have discussed that in case of taxes, you don't have any option. When I told you, it is a compulsory levy. It is not your discretion. It is not your will. It is not you like it or don't like it. You have to pay it. So it is a compulsory levy, and the person on whom taxes are levied, they have to pay those taxes. And secondly, you don't have the option. You cannot defer it. You have to pay it. But in case of fees, there is a concept of counter benefit. When you are paying a fee, a right is vested in you. A right is accrued in you. What is that right? That is the right of the counter benefit. Once you have paid the fee, you are entitled to have the counter benefits from the counterparty, from the other party, from the party to whom you have paid the fee. And secondly, it is the option. It is the discretion. It is your discrete will, whether you want to avail a facility or not. If you want to get an admission in a college or university, it is your discretion. It is your option. You can opt or you can decide otherwise. So in fees, there is no compulsion. It is optional. So it is your discretion, and if you avail the facility, you have to pay the fee and you have the entitlement of the counter benefit. So that is the difference which I have explained to you in detail about the taxes, and in fee the concept has again been explained to you. If you have any difficulty, please you can ask the question. It's a very clear concept. Now I move to the next point. Taxes are an integral part of the fiscal policy. What is the fiscal policy? Fiscal policy is the discipline through which the government generates the revenue purpose, as we have seen, to meet the different expenses which the government has to incur. Now let me speak few words about the public budget. You have household budget, you must be knowing. What is the way, rather what is the method of preparing budget for the household and how they prepare, rather what is advisable for household. What household would do normally? That they see their incomes first, then they revert to the different expenses which are to be incurred during the month. So this is how we plan our budgets. But the government's, the public budget, that is not framed that way. It is reverse. How the governments work? They first see that what expenses are to be incurred on different sectors. You know, there are the different sectors on which the government has to spend. They have to spend on education, on healthcare, on the social sector, on the internal security, establishments on the external security, rather the defense of the country. So there are the different heads on which the governments have to spend. So what happens in case of the public budget? The first allocations are made for the different sectors, and then government reverts to the different sources from where the revenue can be generated. First, expenses are worked out. Say the government decides that they need 900 billion rupees to be spent on different sectors. That has been worked out by the experts, by the economic manager of the government. Now what they will do? From where this 900 billion should be generated? So the main source of collection in the modern days is through the taxes. There are other ways of the collection of the taxes, but a collection of the revenue, but the taxes remain the most important avenue, rather the source from where the revenue can be generated. So now we'll move on to the objectives of fiscal policy. Why this fiscal policy is designed? It is a discipline, as I told you, where it is seen, where the government is required to spend, where government thinks it fit to spend, and from where to collect those revenues. But what is the purpose of the fiscal policy, rather objectives of fiscal policy? Let us see to that. These are some of the objectives which you see on slide. First of all, and the most important remains, the economic development of the country. And with that development, the employment generation also remains a very important objective of the fiscal policy, to generate employment for masses, for the cities. So how this employment is generated? It is not the way that we have to provide employment to 100,000 people or 200,000 people or 10,000 people. That's not the way. Fiscal policy is a discipline which chalks out policies which contribute to the creation of employment. Say, the government can provide inducements, encouragement, facilitation to the business sector, to the investment climate. If the business sector flourishes, if industries are installed, if industrialization takes place, that would create the employment, that would create the jobs. And this can be done. How the taxes play the part? You can lower the burden of tax on these sectors. By lowering the taxes, you are providing them the incentive. They are moving forward. So it's not the direct way that the government is interfering in the process, in the economic process. Rather, government is the catalyst. Government is not the trader itself. Government is not the businessman. It is a catalyst. It provides facilitation to the different sectors which are working. That can be through fiscal measures, that can be through monetary measures. There are so many facilitations which the government is supposed to provide. So then, governments can influence consumption pattern. Consumption, if governments decide that consumption pattern should be reduced, taxes can be raised. If decide that consumption should increase, for so many reasons, I am not going into the details of that, then taxes can be increased, those steps can be taken. Price stability is one of the objectives. It is not through price control, it is through economic measure. Then redistribution of income. This redistribution of income may not create any confusion in your mind. By the way, what you understand by the redistribution? It doesn't mean that the government takes the income from the rich people and start distributing it to the poor classes or the poor segments of the society. So it is not the redistribution. Redistribution is the equitable distribution of the income to the different regions and amongst different societies. So different measures are taken by the state. One measure can be that the state can raise the level of taxes on the people with higher income. What would happen? That will facilitate the lower income growth. So these are the different instruments through which the government influences, rather gives shape to its policies. Then last one is the removal of deficit in the balance of payment. I'm sure you must be knowing what balance of payment is. You must have read in your economics classes that what balance of payment is. Anyway, for those who have not studied balance of payment, let me explain it to you. Balance of payment, rather before balance of payment, I shall have to tell you balance of trade. There are two types of items being traded. One are tangible. The goods, these are the tangible items being exported and imported. There are other items, intangible. How the intangible items are exported and imported, you must be knowing that. Think over it. Okay, I help you. Intangible items, different types of services being provided. Shipping services, banking services, insurance services. If you are providing them, exporting them, you are getting foreign exchange. If you are availing these services, you have to pay in foreign exchange. So, I was telling you about balance of trade. Balance of trade is the balance between visible items of exports and imports. The difference between exports and imports of visible items, or you can say between the goods. If exports are more, imports are less, what would happen? Would you like it or not? You should like it. When you are exporting goods, it means you are earning foreign exchange, they are paying you in foreign exchange. So you are earning more and you are paying less because your imports are less. This is called a favorable balance of trade, and every state wants that they should have. If the reverse is the situation, that imports are more and exports are less, this is the deficit in balance of payments, and it is not a healthy sign for any government. Anyway, if there are more imports and less exports, government has to take certain measures, but still, I have not explained you what is balance of payment. Balance of payment is the difference between the exports of both visible as well as invisible items, tangible as well as intangible items, and the imports thereof. If the exports is more and imports is less, this is a situation of favorable, as we have already discussed. Otherwise, there will be the deficit in balance of payments, and that needs to be corrected. So the students, you have seen that the fiscal policy has certain objectives. We have studied those objectives. The next question arises, how those objectives can be achieved? This is through the different measures which we call tools of the fiscal policy or the instruments of fiscal policy. What are the ways, what are the methods, what are the instruments, what are the tools which the fiscal policy employs in achieving the objectives which we have studied. Those objectives, you all remember what those are. The first of the tool or the instrument, that is through public expenditure. You will be wondering how the expenditure can be a tool, how those objectives can be achieved through the expenditure. Let me explain it to you. For instance, the government wants, one of the objectives of the government through fiscal policy is to raise the level of employment, to create jobs. How the public expenditure can do that? If the government increases the spendings on communications, on road work, on the dams, on the different sectors, if the money is being spent or allocated by the government, what would happen? Those spendings would need the people. Those works will need the people. Those works would create the employment. So, by increasing expenditure and at times by decreasing expenditure, certain objectives of the fiscal policy can be achieved. Say, if there is depression in the market. मार्केट में काम नहीं हो रहा, डिप्रेशन आप समझते होंगे इकोनॉमिक टर्म है, इकोनॉमिक डिप्रेशन आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट. If there is an economic depression, the government through expenditure can generate economic activity in the market. Similarly, if there are inflation, rising prices, in such situation, government by curtailing its expenditures, by curtailing its expenses, can bring down the inflation. So under different situation, government has to take different measures. So through expenditure, that's a very important instrument of the fiscal policy. By increasing expenditure or decreasing expenditure, the government can achieve its objectives which have already been outlined and explained to you. Next comes, which is our topic, taxes. The taxes, you must be wondering how the taxes can achieve the fiscal policy objective. No doubt that you know, and that must be in your mind, that through taxes revenue can be generated. But how the taxes can affect the fiscal policy of the government? Say the fiscal policy objective of the government is to generate economic activity. Or let us see what we studied, the balance of payment deficit improvement. So I was telling you that through taxes, we can improve the balance of payments. The taxes are an instrument of fiscal policy. How this instrument plays its part? With that, by now you must be knowing that we will have to increase our exports. How the exports can be increased through taxes? By providing incentives to the exporters, the exports can be increased. How tax is provided, you must be knowing. If you don't know, we shall be studying that. Let me tell you. Zero rated exports, that concept, that on exports there will be no tax. Those will be exported at 0%. So you are providing an incentive to the exporters. So different types of incentives in the shape of taxes can be provided, and here the taxes play the role of an instrument in achieving the objectives of fiscal policy which we have studied in our previous slide. Then next is instrument, that is deficit financing. What is this concept of deficit finance? As I told you, in public budget what happens? First, the government allocates expenditures to various sectors of the economy. This is the expenditure on internal security, this is on defense, this is social upliftment, this is on education, this is on health, and so on and so forth. A long list, you all know. There are the various sectors where governments have to spend. Now these expenditures, as we had taken the example, say the expenditure which have been worked out, the government is required to spend 900 billion rupees on these sectors. Now next question is, from where to collect this amount? From where to generate the revenue? ये पैसा कहाँ से आए? The main source remains through taxes. So we generate funds through taxes and revenue through other sources. Now say we are able to generate 700 billion rupees. Still there is a deficit of 200 billion rupees. How this deficit of 200 billion is to be financed? कौन से सोर्सेज को रिवर्ट करें कि ये 200 बिलियन रुपीस हमें मिल जाए? इसको डेफिसिट फाइनेंसिंग कहते हैं. हाउ टू फाइनेंस योर डेफिसिट? So that can be through the internal borrowing, through the external borrowings. आपने बहुत सुना होगा IMF, World Bank and all that. That is all how these deficits are financed. So this is one of the most important tools which the developing countries have to follow in adjusting their balance of payment difficulties. As instruments to the different sectors, government has to provide subsidies at times, although in the modern world, in the globalized village, under the terms of the WTO, the subsidies are not liked. neither by developing countries. I cannot say whether liked by the developed or not, but still they have so many subsidies. Anyway, that is a subject of discussion. Anyway, subsidies, the way to provide incentives through subsidies, that should be discouraged, because in the modern days that cannot continue so long. Then transfer payments to the needy, to the poor, the amounts are provided. This is one of the tools you must be knowing, through zakat funds, through benevolent funds, the poor sector of the societies, those are supported. This is one of the instruments of fiscal policy, and sometimes unemployment allowances are paid. That is also an instrument of fiscal policy. So fiscal policy has so many instruments. We have discussed a few, and we shall continue with the sources of revenue generation. We have talked about that a lot, how the revenue is to be generated. So these are some of the sources which you see on the slide of revenue generation. At the top of the list, taxes. You also see a word tariffs. Taxes and tariffs. The taxes, income tax, sales tax, capital value tax, different type of taxes, these are called taxes. Where are the taxes or the duties on the imports and exports? Those are called tariffs. Those are also the taxes which are collected. So the main reliance of revenue generation for the government is through the taxes. Then I had told you in deficit financing, if you have deficit, you cannot make your budget balanced through the revenue, because you cannot impose taxes on the people beyond a certain limit. There is a capacity of the population on which you are imposing the tax. So the taxes cannot be imposed beyond limits. So in such cases you have to see that taxation policy should be such, it should be balanced one. So the poor people, or even the wealthy people, the business class, the investors, those should not suffer. That we should see later on, what should be the canons of taxation. It will be studied over there. Now what are the internal borrowings and external borrowings? External borrowings, I pointed it out, that from the international market, from the international donors, from the international banks, IMF, World Bank, I told you, when you are taking finances from external sources, whatsoever those are, these are the external borrowings. How the borrowings can be done from internal sources? Internal borrowing from your banking sector, or you must have read, by issuing certain instruments. What are those instruments? Securities, bonds, government issues, public sector organization do issue, but those don't come under fiscal policy. When the government generates funds through government securities and the bonds, that is the borrowing. From whom? From internal sources. From the general public, government is borrowing. From financial institutions, government is borrowing. From banking sectors, government is borrowing. So these are called the internal borrowing. This is also a source of funding. Then the governments can also revert to the foreign aid and the grants. So these foreign aids and grants, these can be given by the different countries, and these are some of the sources which we have seen from where the revenue can be generated by the government to run the different affairs of the state, which have already been outlined what those affairs are. The most important thing we have been studying so far, taxation. There must be some philosophy, some thinking, some homework, which have been outlined over here as canons. Canons are the principles. These are the principles on which taxes are to be levied. How the experts think about it. First canon, as you see on the slide, that is the canon of simplicity, and next is the convenience. These mean almost the same. That the tax system, the tax structure, that should be such, which should be the simple one, and it should be also convenient for both taxpayers as well as for tax collectors. It should not be cumbersome, the procedures should be very easy and simplified, and it should not be made difficult. Next is the certainty. It should be very certain, no ambiguity. There cannot be any fooling with fiscal statutes. It should be very clear. It should be certain, the amount, the tax, the person, everything should be very clear. Next, capacity to pay principle. What is the capacity to? That is very important principle. This is the philosophy which has other angle as well. Capacity to pay means that a person should pay the taxes according to his capacity, meaning thereby according to the earning capacity. Those who are earning more, they should give more capacity, they should contribute more to the public exchequer, they should pay more taxes to the government. This is the principle of capacity to pay. But there are others who say that if you are imposing more taxes on the ones who are earning more, who are contributing to the industry and business and the investment, you are discouraging them. So you see another canon, investment friendly. So you cannot go on taxing those who are earning more beyond certain limit. The taxation policies are the principles of taxation. Those should also be investment friendly. Those should not be against the business interest, because that would jeopardize, that would affect, rather badly affect, the overall economic climate of the country. The next principle is the benefit principle. Some of the economists say that those who derive more benefit, they should pay more tax. So if you say it depends upon the different societies. If our structure is seen, we conceive we have a large segment of the population which is below the levy of tax on them. Those who are living below poverty, the tax cannot be levied on them. The benefits theory says those who are deriving more benefit, they should pay more tax. So more benefit is being derived from, as I told you, under common benefits by the poor segments of the societies. These road networks, these grants, these subsidies, these schools, colleges, dispensaries, all the benefits, they are enjoying it without paying tax. So it cannot be done that way in our society. So the students, we come to the end of the 2 days lecture. What we studied today, let me recall, that is an overview of taxes. What are taxes? Literal meaning of taxes, the definition of the taxes, duly explained. Then we came to the statutory definition. I touched to the fiscal policy objectives, and then different sources of revenue generation, and lastly, we discussed the canons of taxation, the principle of taxation. We shall continue with that. We have to study so many other important points with regard to the taxation, and then we shall reach the taxation management. Till next session, it is Khuda Hafiz from Khalil Rao, your instructor. Take care. Allah Hafiz.